Introduction of yourself.
Mr. Superintendent, you're not going to be
I'd like
there?
to call the meeting to order for Thursday, January 11th of our Township Board. And Mr. Massey, can you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With that, I'd like to ask for approval of the agenda, starting with the approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before you do, I would just like to point out a couple things on the consent agenda that are different from Tuesday night.
Sure.
First and foremost is the approval of the treasurer's report for the accounts payable. That number has changed, and if you recall, there was a question on Tuesday evening about the wording behind the payroll for elected officials. It said December 2017 underreported. You should have all of these a copy in front of you, in front of your chairs this evening, just to show that what that amount was. It had actually been underreported on the one that was approved for the special meeting in the end of December. And what happened is with Yvonne on vacation and Heather, it was the first time her putting the financial activity recap together, she had inadvertently left off the FICA, Social Security, and the 15% contribution to the pension for the elected officials that should have been picked up. So you approved accounts payable, and then we had to make this correction on this one so it'll match the general ledger for the amount of money that we had to transfer over. So maybe it was the terminology of underreported that was somewhat misleading, but I wanted to point out we know what that was for and why she used the language. The other thing is that we had a invoice come in today from Accident Fund, which is our workers' comp insurance, and that's been included to this, $12,051.31 for the general fund and $2,334.79 for the DPW fund. I wanted to get it paid under this one. It is due on February 1st, and we want to get that paid without penalty, so I would hopefully the board would approve that as well tonight.
If there are no other changes, I would move that the...
One,
Yes, Mr.
just a
Chairman.
point of order. Did we determine on the Board of Zoning Appeals whether that was supposed to be 20 or 21? For the,
20.
my copy's saying 21.
The one that the new one that should have been handed out
was changed.
Okay, I
should have said
this
20.
This is the one from Tuesday night. Sorry about that. Okay.
That's all right.
Oh, and the other thing was that was added was on item number on the consent agenda, item number G. You guys did have it at your place from Treasurer Guzak for the third quarter investment report, and we didn't hear back from anybody in the email I sent out, so we included that on your consent agenda if there were no objections.
Right.
Okay, so being no other changes,
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
so there's a
on the
motion to
consent.
approve the consent agenda. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we'll move to approval of the rest of the agenda. Anything there that anybody wants to add or take on?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, move to citizen comment, and we'll start right over here on the left of the room. If anybody would like to make any comment. Okay. Please come to the podium and give us your name and address, and we'd love to hear from you.
My name is Jacob Creighton. I live on Norfolk, 1393 Norfolk.
Yeah.
And, you know, I got this buyer's remorse. We got a beautiful road over there. The road looked really nice over there. Looks really good. They seem like they engineered it well,
Okay.
you know, high in the middle, so the water drained properly and everything. It looks good. But we just want to know what the final bill is going to be. We don't know what the damage is and what kind of warranty or whatever they're going to have for the road, as far as, you know, maintaining the road in good condition for over a period of years that we got to pay, you know.
Good question. We do have a policy for maintaining it for a certain period of time, but Mr. Guzak, do we have the final bill yet?
No, we'd like to see the final bill too, because we want to put it out for bond bid, and we were supposed to get something maybe by tomorrow, because I asked the DPW director to talk to the county again and see if they could come up with it. And they said there were some issues, evidently, some of the seating and stuff on the backside hasn't been done yet, so they're not quite sure on the bill yet, but I told them we have to get some kind of estimate because people want to try to pay this thing off by February, and so far we don't have it. So I think we're going to get a closer estimate at the end of the week, but I don't know if it's going to be the final bill. He didn't think we were going to get a final bill at this point.
No.
I don't know if Mr.
I haven't heard anything.
You haven't heard anything
other
different than that,
what you
right?
just said.
Right, because we're concerned too, because usually we have the bond all locked in and everything by now, but we can't if we don't have the final bill. And I think all the work that's been done has been right. Now they're just worried about making sure the grass can be filled back in and some things that they are not sure on, that they don't like, that they want them to fix to make sure it's acceptable to all the residents.
Well, it seemed like they took time, especially where we had a lot of water that was holed up in some of the drain systems. You know,
Right.
it seemed like they did a good job of making sure it was done proper.
Right.
But want to understand, I know everybody on this council want our township to look beautiful. How come we're not working on the rest of the roads throughout the township? Is there something projected on that?
Let me answer a couple of your questions first, and then if you have any other, did you have a?
After you're finished.
Okay.
Yep.
With regard to the road maintenance for your neighborhood, our policy is, what we do is we will crack seal, that's for as long as, so what is it, a 10-year bond that we're going for?
Well, it's for the bond. Whatever the length of the bond
Right.
is, we'll
So
crack
is
seal
theirs
for that.
Is theirs a 10-year bond?
Theirs is a 10-year bond. Right?
So for 10 years, we will crack seal. So any cracks, the larger cracks that appear in the road, we will have a crew out there in the summers that will fill those cracks with, you know, the sealer.
Our crew, our DPW.
Right.
Right.
As far as the rest of the roads in the county, as you know, in your neighborhood, you had to have a special assessment to pave those streets, right? That's how it came about, is your neighborhood passed around a petition, you
Yeah.
agreed that we'd pay for them, what have you.
You know, I didn't like the way it went about, but
Yeah. Well, anyways, that's how it works in the subdivisions. The rest of the roads, like Hill Road, what have you.
Are they having people canvassing like they did my neighborhood? As far as, do you want the roads repaired or anything? Or
Well, the
What's it-
primary roads such as Hill Road, Maple Road, those types of roads are, all the streets are under the jurisdiction of the Genesee County Road Commission. And so the only thing that we do as a township is we actually, as Mr. Guzak, our treasurer, mentioned, we go out for the bond. So when a neighborhood says, hey, we want to pay to have our streets paved, the township actually seeks the bond to finance you paving your roads. The county actually is in charge of it, and they are the ones that contract out or do the roads themselves. And that's the way it is with all the streets and roads in the county.
I just
Or at
want
least in
all,
the
I want
township.
all of our township to look good, you know?
We agree with
Helps
that.
our property value. And just to have some streets looking good and the rest looking
Well,
crappy.
we're frustrated the same way. We have neighborhoods such as yours that come here, and when they see the price of what it would cost, they say, we don't want to pave them. And sometimes it's very agonizing for us because those roads aren't going to get any better by themselves, and it lowers the value on your house as well as ours when that happens. Mr. Thomas?
One of the interesting things is that a lot of people don't understand is that in Michigan, townships do not own our roads. We don't receive any of the tax revenues for our roads. It's all owned, plowing, it's all the county's responsibility. I had a history lesson last week by our clerk that in the late 70s is when the township started to plow our roads. And the only reason why they did that was because they never got done. They would never, ever get done. So our township, you have to realize that every dime of your tax money goes to the county. None of it goes to the township to pay for the DPW and the work that we do on. That's just a reason that you live in Grand Blanc Township, because every township in the state of Michigan owns no roads. It's all done by, and all your county money, all your taxes go to the county where we receive nothing.
No. So we got to get approved for the county to get the work done.
I had a conversation with our supposed representative to this area, to the County Road Commission, and I spoke with them, and then I came back and I spoke with our DPW director, Jeff Sears, and then just yesterday I talked to our superintendent, Dennis Lemata, about the same situation that we're going through. And just to maintain our roads, not to build anything, Just to maintain what we have now, the price tag's $500,000 out of our general budget that we receive no money from the taxpayers, not a dime. And we're in the same predicament as homeowners and business owners as you are. It's a never-ending crisis.
Okay.
Okay.
We share your concerns and appreciate you coming and talking to us, okay?
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Please come forward if you want to speak.
Right?
And please give us your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to.
Okay, my name is Marvin Wyatt. I live at 1423 Norfolk, and I had the same concern what Jake was talking about. And my issue is, to me, they didn't really complete the street, to tell you the truth. They didn't replace a lot of curves, and actually they did more damage than repair and resurfacing the road. They did more damage to it, as far as like my personal, like damage to my driveway, and I got a brand new driveway, and I was wondering who's gonna be responsible for that.
Okay. Well, it's something that we certainly can bring to their attention.
And I did bring it to their attention to the supervisor, and they never got back with me. The guy was out there actually supervising the job. And I just hear like round and round, pointing the fingers, you know what I mean?
Okay. If you could leave, yeah, Mr. Massey.
I have a question for you. Have you spoken to anyone here at the township office?
I spoke to Kathy Lane, that's why I've been getting in touch, and then she actually, today, when I came in today, I had told her back, before when it actually happened. Then I told her again today when I came in to pay my taxes, and she had referred me to
Jeff Sears.
Jeff Sears. And I sent him pictures, emailed him pictures today.
Okay.
And
Well,
so-
Jeff will get back with you.
right. And-
So I just want to find out who's going to take care of that. And then we're about the 15-year extension. I want to find out about that too, as far as like special assessment. I want to find out, I hear there's so many stories going around. The first time the engineer, the y'all guys that had the engineer that was actually on the job, he was going around telling all the neighbors that y'all had money in the bucket for everybody.
Yeah, the 10 years is pretty much where we've been. We're exploring the idea of going with 15 years, but this one is all set for going for 10 years.
It's all set for 10 years, but I think maybe his concerns and, the problems you're talking about, that's probably why the county won't give me a final bill, because they're concerned just like you are, that they don't want us to go out for a bond until they get it fixed.
Right.
And then make sure that the supplier did it properly. And
But my issue is how are they going to build somebody and y'all ain't got the full estimate?
Well, we won't be.
Well, we
That's
did.
kind
We
of
did.
kind of double dipping right there to me.
We did, on your tax bill, there is an estimate for the first one. It's an estimate of what the highest amount we had approved, okay?
Right.
And hopefully, the bond's gonna, the total cost is gonna come less than that. If it doesn't, then we have to come back and start over on part of it. But was billed on your tax bill for the first installment. There's no interest on there, just the principal. But that's the full amount. That's an estimate, because we don't have the final bill.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you, I ain't happy with it. I'm not even happy at all. I don't even, like I said, my home value not up to par. Pay no $10,000, for the next, $1,000 for the next 10 years. I feel that ain't right. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm not happy with it at all. I'm very disappointed.
And the quality of the work you're saying.
And the quality of the work too.
Okay.
I'm sure the county will make sure it's correct. That's why they're not, they're holding the feet to the fire, and I'm
And
sure.
I thought it was gonna be paid. They absought it. You can see how Saginaw looking now.
I'm sorry, what was your
Mr. County had
address?
his hand up.
1423 Norfolk,
That's all I know. 1423?
Norfolk.
Mr. County?
Mr. Thomas is correct, that township doesn't have responsibility for the road construction and repair. However, we do have a responsibility to the residents, so
Right.
you're gonna have Jeff out there.
Yes.
We're gonna get this, well, I'd like, for our next board meeting, if we could see some photos of it and at least some correspondence between Mr. Sears and the road commission representatives, and even the supervisor that the gentleman talked to, so, yeah, I'd like to follow up on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'd like to know, how did this project get off course? It's quite apparent to me, based on the conversation, that you guys started a project and had no idea what the end result is going to be.
No.
Well, they
That's
knew
not
what the
entirely
result was
true.
going to be, but what happens, and let's get a report from the
Yes.
road commission and have them give an explanation, but,
And then you still got poor drainage. In front of my house right now, we just got melted snow. I can imagine when the rainy season coming around, we'll have a nice little lake in front of the house. And
Yeah.
whatever they did is
All
not
right.
satisfying.
okay, Ms. Lane?
Mr. Wyatt came to me back in, I think, November. And I forwarded his information and contacts to Mr. Sears, and that's where some of these things came to light. This project, instead of starting early in the spring, trucks were out there, nothing was done for weeks and weeks and weeks. Why, I don't know, and I don't think Jeff Sears knows. But again, you're asking for a report, so Jeff, I know, will give it to us. But Mr. Wyatt has been very patient. He had just put in a complete brand-new driveway, and now where they did work, they have cracked the bottom part of his driveway. And you know, when you're spending over $6,000 for a driveway, you're not happy when it's already cracked in less than months from the time you had it done. Because I know our driveways where they worked were done well, and we didn't have this experience, so.
Well, what I want to do is see if we can't get the
Right.
maintenance supervisor from the road commission, as well as, I know Jeff will be here and report, but.
Yeah, it's just
I'd
like
to-
driving up on a curb. That's how it is. Like it's
So
worse than
we're
a
not gonna
pothole.
let this go, we'll address it, and,
Okay, I hope so. Like I
Okay.
said, I've been talking to touching bases with
Yeah.
Kathy about what's
Yeah.
going on.
well, Jeff Sears, you want to make sure you keep in contact with him, because he's our direct contact. with
I
him.
hope
Very-
so.
From the very
Okay,
beginning.
no, I
when
understand,
Matt-
Kathy, I
when Marvin
appreciate it.
came
That's
in.
all I got for right now.
Okay, and I
Thank you.
appreciate
Okay.
you referring them to Jeff.
Yes.
Anybody else, sir?
Meeting tomorrow with Dave Arceo.
I'm just here to get on the record. John Olivo, 1417 Norfolk Avenue. I'm Marvin's neighbor.
Okay.
Pretty much have the same concerns. I mean, I've got 4 or 5 feet of curb missing that I didn't have missing before the work started. Now they're gone, and you can come out and look at it. My driveway is way worse. It's from the street to the entrance of the driveway is just like horrendous. It's about 3 inches of blacktop and broken up cement, and the work's real shoddy. I mean, I'm sure they'll do some improvements like you guys are saying, and I hope that they do. But pretty much the same concerns as far as the rise in taxes and all that stuff. I mean, I'm not thrilled with it. I'm not happy with it. But I mean, I'm just gonna, like I said, get on the record here for, these are my concerns. I'm not thrilled with all of it, but
Okay,
I'm
we're gonna
just,
address
gonna,
those.
try and be part of the solution. That's about it.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, all right.
Okay. Any other comments? Good evening, sir. Please give us your name and address, and you've got 3 minutes.
James E. Suggs, 1403 Norfolk.
Guys. Go ahead, sir.
I want to know, how did they come by when they went for the price of the street?
Say that again, I'm
Like
sorry.
the price they put on, what, $10,000?
Per household? Or,
Yeah, how they come to that number?
Well, what we'd like to do, sir, is we probably would like to have the road commission come to our next meeting, and our DPW director, and probably can answer a lot of questions, but I can tell you this in brief without getting into a whole lot of detail. The petition that was circulated in your neighborhood was circulated by a few residents that live in your neighborhood, obviously. And the road commission comes up, the road commission is in charge of the roads, okay? And they estimated what the cost would be to resurface the roads or rebuild them in your neighborhood.
Yeah, I
And what
talked
they-
to one road commission man who knocked on every door. And I talked to a lady who brought the petition. She didn't say nothing about no paying no money. She just asked us, would y'all like a new street? If I wouldn't do that, was signing about paying no money, I'm retired and a senior citizen. Almost everybody on my street is. How can y'all figure out how much somebody gonna pay? You don't even know what even the money is in the household. I don't see how you could come up with that.
Right. Well, they take the total cost and divide it by the number of residents in that neighborhood, and that's how they come up with the cost, and we're waiting for the final bill as we
Yeah,
talked
because that
about
still
earlier.
don't, they ain't got nothing to do with what the household make. You gotta know what the household make. You can't, if you come up with anything, you gotta talk to everybody in every household. How you gonna make a decision about somebody else's money that you don't know what they getting?
Right.
It's,
Yeah, it's based on a per household. There is a hardship clause that if somebody has a difficult time, there's a process for handling that
But like I said, if that lady was saying something about,
the
I
cost.
got paid for a street, hey, with my fixed income, ain't nowhere in the world I went for that. I pay enough stuff.
Right.
And like I say, we only get a certain amount of money. I don't care what nobody come up with. You can't squeeze juice out of an orange if ain't nothing in it. If I don't make that much, can't nobody tell me what I got to pay. That's like I got to get here trying to struggle for something that I know I can't afford.
Right.
If I could afford that street, I would have had my driveway done.
I understand. Okay, thank you, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Mary Wyatt, 1423 Norfolk. I'm Marvin's wife. And my concern was the same thing, our driveway and the drainage, but also it's like a lot of inconsistency with what we thought it was going to be. We know everybody went around and gathered petitions for the street, which you have certain percentage that passed. That's why the streets got done. But my concern was to be, like, some of the people that petitioned for the street to be paved, I know one person that was for it, he signed the petition, but he ended up moving out the neighborhood. I think that's wrong to sign something and put everything on somebody else, but this is something that you want, but you're not gonna stay in the neighborhood. And I think it's not just him, it was another lady that went around with the petitions also and signed. So that percentage shouldn't be right, but it's a lot of inconsistency where we said that we're gonna get all the curves done, the drainage done, but the street looked mismatched. You know, some curves got done, some didn't get done. I seen the DPW out on the corner on one of the coldest days trying to fix the drainage. It's already some problems already occurring. And now it wasn't done right. I don't know how did you guys do this. It seemed like a lot of people was unknowledgeable about what was going on. You guys didn't let us know things in time. And also, we feel we came to all the meetings. We was against these things that was going on. But still, you guys came up with like 2 different percentages. It was like only like 48%, 52%. Which one was it? It was like an inconsistency with that too. And then it's like we heard this big old gap in between. We didn't hear anything from anyone. And then all of a sudden we getting the streets paved and all this done. Okay, the street's supposed to be done on this date. Like she said, no, we didn't see nothing was to date on time like it was supposed to. It was some days where they didn't even show up.
Well, just to clarify again, the petition, you have to have over 50%, okay? That we don't change that percentage.
Right.
The other thing is, as far as the timeline, the quality of the work, the when they're gonna start, whatever, all that's up to the county road commission. The only thing that we do is we get the financing. The neighborhood says, yes, we wanna pave the road. County says that here's the cost. The township says, we're going to the bank to get the money to loan. And what we do is we loan the money basically to the neighborhood, and they give them 10 years to pay for it. And that's our only involvement. But our concern is that if the county isn't doing a good job, we're the county's customer too. And so we're gonna be there with you saying, hey, you know, if this stuff isn't up to quality, then we've got a problem. And that's what you're telling us, is that works. We don't have somebody out there supervising the county because they're their roads, but we've come to some discussion that maybe we should have somebody supervising it, but it's not our job. It's the county gets all the tax money for that, and hopefully we'll get somebody from the road commission, and you guys can come and let your feelings be known directly to them at our next meeting.
Right, we will do
Okay.
that. And also, is there any rules or anything that you say, like the people that petition for the streets to be done within a certain amount of time, that they should be counted in that vote?
Well, the
I mean, I
people
feel like
that,
they shouldn't even been counted, especially if you do all these things, and then a month later, you decide that before the streets get paved, you decide to up and move.
well, anybody that signed the petition owes.
And I think that percentage shouldn't even count.
Anybody who signed that petition owes the money, so I guess if they're willing to sign it and move and still want to pay the money, then I guess,
Okay.
you know, but they've got to pay if they put their name on the line,
Yeah,
so.
that house is gonna pay.
The
Right,
house will
whoever
pay,
bought
not
that
the owner.
house is gonna pay for that road.
Yeah,
If the person did move
Right,
on.
right. Okay,
okay. Thank you.
Kathy?
Mary, for your information, if someone signed the petition, and if the title company called us, we told them, once it had been, we had said we were gonna go ahead with the roads, the realtor, the seller of the property, and the buyer were all supposed to tell each other that this was going on, so that a buyer wasn't blindsided.
Right, I understand that part.
Okay.
I understand how that worked, you know, as far as realtor and moving and stuff. But the moral of the person, that was wrong.
I have a question. Do you guys have a homeowners association?
Yes, I'm president of it.
Well, my understanding, the way that functions, if I'm wrong, correct me, is that if a person decides to sell his or her home, normally the homeowners association is contacted in regard to dues. Has that person fully paid their dues?
Joe, you are in a homeowners organized subdivision that came along with your master deed. Concord Green was built in 1960. The homeowners in there, on their own, started a voluntary homeowners association. We maintain our entrance, and our dues are $20 a year. We don't have any formal homeowners association as such. It's volunteers and people, sometimes 90%, sometimes 75% of our residents pay that $20 to help us maintain our entrance, put in repairs to our fences, the blockhouse, and things like that. So it's Ottawa Hills and the older subdivisions that have homeowners associations are these volunteer types, and we don't have any state laws or local laws that say you have to notify, you know, the homeowners association board or anything like that. It's a voluntary organization.
I understand that, but I'm basing it, since you used me as an example, let me throw something back at
Sure.
you. I was part of the homeowners association. I helped formalize the language for the homeowners association. I made sure that all of the language was drafted correctly, okay, that protected every homeowner in the association. So that's what I did personally, okay? Since you're the president, I was assistant president, vice president.
Okay, these rules and bylaws were started back in the 60s.
But you said you were part of it, right?
Not back in the 60s. I didn't come here till
Well,
the 70s.
Yeah.
But it's an
The
informal.
bottom line is, we're gonna,
I just
We're
have
gonna-
one more question.
what we want to do is we want to hold the county accountable for the work they did and see if we can't assist your neighborhood in doing that.
Okay.
All
And
right?
Another thing, I heard something about the whole neighborhood, eventually like the subdivisions, like Concord Green, Hillcrest, Wishing Well, they were all, something about you guys were going to do a resurfacing of those streets also, but put it in the millage, is that true?
I haven't heard anything on that.
Okay, because I was like, well, they do that, then we had to be double dipping, then we would still
Right,
have to
yeah.
pay again.
I haven't heard anything along those lines.
It's not even legal because we don't own the roads.
Yeah.
Did you
Hillcrest-
mention something like that?
Hillcrest homeowners, Hillcrest
Look into it though.
owners came in several years ago and were interested in passing petitions. We had an informational meeting, this is back in 2008 or 9, and when they heard the cost, which was high like what yours is, they couldn't circulate the petitions. People wouldn't sign them, so they couldn't do it. And
Yeah.
a millage or anything like that would have to go before the voters, and everybody would have to vote. It's not something
Yeah, that's what I heard, it's
subdivisions
going to
could
be on
do.
the, somebody was going to put it on the ballot.
No,
or something.
Oh.
there isn't
Okay, 'cause
anything of
actually,
that.
their streets are worse than our streets.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and they have tried numerous times to get them done, and the residents over there don't want to do it at all. And the same with Wishing Well.
Thank you very much, Ms.
Thank you for
Lyon.
your time.
Okay, and we'll look forward to seeing you one of our future meetings. If it's real brief. Okay.
Did I, excuse me, did I
Sure.
say that they won't be charging interest on this loan?
No, there's interest on it. The first payment was only principal only. So on your tax bill this year, you're seeing 1/10 of the amount, okay, of just the principal.
Oh,
Okay, so there will be interest accrued, so the following year, you're gonna have a whole year's worth of interest plus a principal payment. But we won't.
was that interest negotiated or anything for,
Well, the interest, that's when we're waiting. Once we get the final bill, we go out and we contact all the banks and try to get the lowest bond possible, and we pick the lowest bond financing.
okay, all right.
And we do that, but the county does everything else. They're the ones that set up everything else. We just do the financing part.
Okay,
Through
all
the
right.
bond companies.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
You're welcome.
all right. Well, we certainly are happy to hear that the workmanship wasn't up to snuff, and we will be in some conversations. So,
When the tax tribunal coming,
I'm sorry?
when the tax tribunal, people, they coming up here?
When is the tax tribunal?
Yeah. they'll
Mr.
come up
Limita, do you know the dates of the hearing?
It's like the first week or second week of March, you'll get notice. And it's also printed on your tax bill. It tells you when the Board of Review meets, that's where you'd be interested. If you have questions about your taxable value or your assessed value, or the special assessment district, you want to make an appointment with the Board of Review and come in and have a conversation with them. If
Okay.
you don't like the answer you get from the Board of Review, if you fill out an appeal, then you would have the ability to fill out a form for the Michigan Tax Tribunal to, so that you have an opportunity to appeal the Board of Review's decision.
Oh, okay.
But they will help you here, and if you're concerned about missing the dates or anything, call the assessor's office, or if you're in the neighborhood, stop in and just speak with Becky Salvati or anybody in the assessing department. But look on the bottom of your tax bill, and you'll see the ability to dispute it at the Board of Review in March.
Oh, okay, so March 2nd or something like that?
It's like the first or second week of March, but the dates are on there.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Okay,
Up the interest that hasn't been added to the job yet. So once we get the interest and that payment, that'll be the only final payment that's added to the taxes. Is that correct?
who's that?
Well, you'll have the principal amount, which
Yeah,
is gonna
once
be,
the, yeah.
which
we have
is
the
1/10,
principal.
which is 1/10 of the total bill,
Right,
okay?
right, I
Then
understand.
you're gonna have interest every year on the declining
every
balance.
year the
Every
interest-
year, you're gonna have interest, right?
Okay. Okay, that's the question.
But it does decline with the balance, so.
Okay, thank you.
All right, appreciate all the public comment, and
Yeah.
we appreciate knowing what's going on in that neighborhood. With that, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes.
Let's so move.
Support?
Okay? Move and support. Any other?
Discussion?
Yes, discussion.
So, we're approving the minutes for December, but I have a question about minutes from November 28th.
Yes,
We'd like to
go ahead.
discuss that. So, the specific area that I wanted to address was the minutes from the executive session. And in it, it had to deal with the contract negotiations. And want to make sure that we had accurately addressed in that meeting the results of those contract negotiations.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Has to go to Mr. Limita.
Oh, I didn't quite understand your statement. That's why I was intervening.
Could you,
So in the November 28th executive session, we had, part of the executive session topic was a contract negotiation for our new planning position. And I want to make sure that the elements of that contract are adequately addressed in the minutes, including the compensation level and the various benefits and the next steps that we agreed to from that.
have you looked at the 28th minutes?
Of course, I looked at the overall meeting minutes, and of course, there's nothing in the executive session about that, so that's what my concern is.
Well, I know that in our regular minutes, I recall at that meeting, you asked, well, when we came out of executive session, you did mention that, that you would like to have the
Yeah, consistent with other negotiations coming out of the minutes after the group has outlined the compensation, the benefits, all the rest of that thing, we authorize the superintendent to execute the contract within those guidelines.
Right.
And
I
we agree
recall
to
that.
do that. So that's what I want to make sure is adequately recognized in the minutes.
Okay, Mr. Massey had his hand up, I think.
No, he
Okay.
responded to
Okay.
it.
Ms. Lane?
Everyone knows we can't make decisions in executive session, so we did get a contract, but I think the appropriate thing would be tonight to accept the contract that Mr. Limita negotiated, and if you wanted copies, then those were signed.
Mr. Limita?
You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, and I just looked at the November 28th meeting minutes, and it's not in there, but when we came out of executive session on November 28th, the board made a motion, I believe it was trustee Mansfer made a motion outside of executive session when we reconvened to direct the superintendent to complete negotiations with the planner as discussed within the executive session, or with the parameters given in the executive session. So that minute, though, that motion is not reflected in the minutes, and
Right.
it should have been, and I don't know about.
Well, and if we left out something, that is, if we all made a mutual mistake and excluded something from minutes we've approved, it's appropriate for you to amend those minutes. You can do it tonight if you
Okay.
want, but you can reopen them, make sure that that motion is included, and then adopt them as amended.
So I'd like to reopen those minutes, make sure that element was included in them, and then, I guess, approve them.
So that's your motion to reopen the minutes? Support.
Okay.
And we'll have a vote
Motion
on
and
that.
support. Any further discussion on
I'm
that?
sorry, who's?
Clark,
Okay,
Mr. Kent.
fine.
Any further discussion on that item? Okay, so you want to add that to the
So,
minutes?
yeah, I would,
Let's have a vote to reopen them,
yep,
and then
Okay.
we can get the amendment.
All right, I'd like to have
Do
them.
we have to close the motion that we're on right now?
that's what we're
That's what he said.
opening.
I
Yeah.
want you to take a vote on the motion that's on the table.
Okay. So do we need to take a vote on the current motion?
Yes.
Right, to
Okay.
reopen the minutes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're opening the minutes for November 28th.
So now is there a motion to amend the minutes to reflect the action taken after the executive session to recognize that Mr. Lima has the authority to negotiate with the employee identified in that executive session pursuant to the terms identified in that executive session?
I couldn't say it better myself. I'm so moved.
And
So moved.
Okay,
And second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so,
Now, may I ask
Yes,
a question?
sure.
Normally, what I've accustomed to having is that when there is a contract negotiated, we usually make a motion to accept the contract, and generally, the board sees that contract.
Well, what we did is, and again, as I recall, and I can't give away what happened in that room, but I
Right.
believe we were talking pretty specifically about the terms of that agreement and the individual that negotiation was going to take place with. And so, Ms. Lane, you're correct, and it turns out that the result of the negotiation, you were informed that they were successful. In fact, there's visual evidence of that tonight. But, so you're right, that's the way it used to be, but we have been able to make the process more efficient, in my opinion, with Mr. Limita, and we've given him the authority. We gave him the authority after that meeting. We have in other instances. Once we've identified a specific candidate and set up a certain range for negotiations, we've delegated the authority to him to close a deal, so to speak. And so your memory's right, but also the new process is acceptable.
and we do that on a number of other contracts as well, that
we do.
we determine the limitations and charge our superintendent with negotiating within those boundaries.
And can I add just one thing? I
Yes.
think the reason for that, we have found ourselves, when we were in a more, well, I guess a less efficient way of doing business, when we didn't have a superintendent, as an example, it would usually take an extra step. There would have to be contact made after the meeting by a representative, and then normally those contracts would bounce back to the board. And we've been able to kind of streamline it with Mr. Limita's efforts. And so it does look a little bit different, but it's better, frankly.
Right. Mr. Massey?
I have a question.
Sure.
Who has the best recollection of the meeting?
Me.
Executive session.
Hard to say.
No, I'm asking this for a reason.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And let me be just as blatant as I possibly can. when it's put together and brought back to us, I don't want someone just making up something, okay, since it's been weeks have gone by. So I want it to be as accurate as possible. That's my point.
As far as the minutes go, or the
Or
contract?
as far as the executive minutes,
Oh, okay.
what the trustee is asking for.
For the contract.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a little bit, it's interesting because the specifics of the items to be negotiated were set in that room.
Yes.
And then when we came out, we said, okay, Mr. Limita, you have your instructions, carry forward, and we wish you good luck. And that's basically what happened. And so you're right that the terms of the minutes in the executive session should specifically have the parameters that we talked about with Mr. Limita, and so that we can make sure that he carried out what we wanted to.
That's why I'm asking the question.
And Mr. Massey, that's probably something that we need as a board to make sure we do, is that when we review, and a lot of times we get the executive meeting minutes, or executive committee meeting, or executive session, before the meeting we glance at, oh yeah, but what we need to do is make sure that the details are outlined in that, especially when we're looking at a contract, that they meet with the details that we agreed to before we sign our name saying, yeah, those are accurate minutes. But you bring up a very good point. Mr. Lemina, and then...
And for the record, I just want to reflect that Clerk Lane had mentioned that to make sure that the board then saw a copy of that contract. And I want to be very, very clear that the contract that were in those negotiations was the one that moved forward from there. No, there were no changes to the contract that you all saw that evening. It was also signed by the clerk and the supervisor, and the clerk received a copy immediately after signing with the new employee. So I just want to be very clear that it's not, you guys haven't seen the contract that was negotiated, that though it was the same one you saw that evening, and it was the same one that was signed, and the clerk did receive a signed copy of it from me for the record, for the board's record purposes.
Mr. Lehman, I did not receive a copy. There were 2 copies signed at the Christmas party.
You did, I brought it to you.
The original?
Clerk Lane, I will disagree with you. I
right.
walked in, you were sitting in at the Christmas party talking with Mark. I walked in and said, Kathy, here's your copy of the contract for Mr. Lloyd, and I gave it to you while you were sitting at your desk talking with Mark.
I received a
I
copy,
disagree.
so...
I didn't.
Okay, so...
My point,
Ken?
okay.
Or Mr. Thomas?
My point is that the supervisor signs it and the clerk signs it, correct?
Right.
We actually don't have to, but
But
we
you
do.
guys, so the things that we discussed in the executive sessions, you see the contract, you sign
Right.
the contract, Kathy, the clerk sees it.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, we could have Mr. Lemita just sign it, and actually, we authorize him to do it. So actually, he doesn't even have to come to us, but he does.
That's his job.
Right. So, okay, so we moved through the one set of minutes. I think we have some other minutes to approve.
We did the December minutes. Mr.
Did we?
Supervisor.
We took a vote on those as
Yep.
well?
Yes.
If we did that.
I don't remember that.
No, we
Yeah.
didn't.
No.
No,
Let's,
because we stopped the.
Let's make sure we do.
Yeah, let's do
So,
I thought
Mr. Massey and Mr. Mansour made the motion
seconded
to
it.
approve the December minutes.
okay.
For
All
the
right, we voted
3
on it?
meetings, right.
Okay.
I thought we voted.
All right. We'll move on to, we have the consent agenda that we approved. Ms. Lane has in her minutes that we approved them. So for future positioning, the board will welcome the new Township Director of Planning and Building, Mark Lloyd, and have the opportunity to share information about our township vision for the future, including the master plan update being proposed. So how's that for a welcome, Mr. Lloyd? We're very pleased to finally, after, I don't know, probably 5 years of waiting, at least I know my previous 4 years on the board and a year now, to bring somebody on in this position, and we're very pleased to have somebody of your caliber to be able to fill that. So Mr. Lemita has spoken very highly, and I know, our several discussions, very impressed, and we're looking forward to doing great things here. So, yeah, come on up to the podium, and if you have a few words. I know probably some of our board members will have some questions.
Well, I don't mind talking a little bit about myself.
Okay.
Happy to do it, and thank you all very much. I was born in Flint, Michigan. I'll give you a little bit of background. Went to Lake Benton High Schools, moved to Southern California in 1982. I was a pretty young man back then. Graduated from Cal State University. Married to my wife 30 years. I've got 3 children. Allison, 25, she's in Colorado teaching and coaching. My son Matthew's a chemical engineer. And my son Michael is at Eastern right now studying to be an accountant. Mr. Guzak. We'll talk later. Anyway, I spent 20 years out in Southern California before I decided to move back. 15 of those years I was a community development director in Orange County City, and I then was subsequently recruited by McKenna Associates. I think they've worked here at one time, as a matter of fact, as a planning firm, to move back here. McKenna's a Michigan firm. We hit it off pretty well. Got recruited to come back here, and I did so. That was in '02. And since then, I spent a good number of years in the city of Ann Arbor as their director of planning and building, economic development, and was in Inkster for about 2.5 years, and then recently with Giffords-Webster. And as you know, through Giffords-Webster, I also worked here a little bit as a planner for 6 months or so. And during that time, I was able to discover a number of things about the township, aside from the fact that it's attractive and doing pretty well. I also realized I had some pretty good people here, a lot of good people. I think so far everybody I've met are truly wonderful folks. And so, you know, that in itself was a bit of an attraction. But I also realized there were a lot of needs here that, you know, I had experience in having dealt with in the past, and a lot of interest in being able to help bring a few of these things together, help facilitate, you know, maybe some enhanced communication, better, more streamlined processes, a little more accountability. Then I heard that someone had mentioned the need for a planner, and I thought about that long and hard, actually. I didn't jump on it right away. It did take me a while to make that decision, but I did make that decision, and I made it based on some of what I've already told you about my experience and my interest, but also I don't know how and whatever might have happened in the closed session, to be honest with you, but I doubt if I got what I was supposed to get paid for. I'm sure I came up short on that. But in any event, I'm here, and I'm just going to let that be. So in any event, but it's really, this whole decision for me was not about the money. I put myself in a position throughout my career to be able to pick and choose now and decide what I want to do and where I want to be. And I made that decision to be here. This was my decision. I had a lot of interest. I pursued it. I was met with the welcome and interest on the part of the township to do that. Folks that I worked at Giffords, who'd been here for a number of years, thought and realized that this was a very good fit for the township, and they knew that I would be able to serve the township pretty well. So that was reassuring. That wasn't necessary. It was simply reassuring. But for me, you know, I feel that I am a really good fit for what I see, you know, this position evolving into and needing to be. And so I look very much forward to meeting my own expectations, which I would think are probably going to be considerably higher, or maybe not considerably, but higher, or at least equal to the expectations that you would have of me and that the community would have of me. And I can tell you this much: I'm enthusiastic. I'm energetic. I'm very proactive. I work hard to try to facilitate and help people get through what is sometimes very difficult processes. Issues come up, I like to address them. I don't like to let them linger. I sure don't like to let them get back to elected officials and then come back to me or the township administration as a whole. So I'm looking forward to doing the kind of things that I like to do. And I hope that that meets with the township's needs. I think that we've got a good alignment here, and so I'm just looking forward to being a part of the Grand Blanc Township team. And I want to thank all of you for your confidence in me and the support that you've shown so far, and what I hope is support for my tenure here. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Massey?
I have a couple of questions. I have one trivial question. Orange County,
Yeah.
is
sure.
that near San Diego?
No, that's north of San Diego. You know, about an hour, hour and a half. Everything's based on time out there. There's no real mileage in California. It's all how much time it takes to get somewhere. Because 2 miles can take you 2 hours, and 100 miles can take you an hour.
Oh,
So,
okay.
you know, it can be a little different.
Okay.
But yeah, it's north of San Diego.
I have another trivial question.
You know where Disneyland is?
Yes?
There it is. That's
Oh,
Orange County,
okay.
right? That's in the middle of Orange County.
Oh, you had an enjoyable stay there, I know.
Huh?
It was very enjoyable there. wasn't
Oh,
it?
yeah. It was a great time, yeah.
So, the next question for you. I know you're not expecting this question. Whom do you report to at the township?
I report to Mr. Limita.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And Maria. You know, we should all know that. She'll appreciate that. I told her I'd mention her name.
For the minute.
Good.
Anybody else have any questions, or?
And I really am looking forward to talking to you at length about the master plan and that process and all those things, but that hasn't really come before you yet. It's a lot of work to do.
Before you disembark, Mark, would you just have a brief conversation with the board about us moving forward and kind of our thoughts as we're moving up with how often we'll be using planning consultants, what their role is versus your role?
Sure. I will essentially be taking over, you know, 90% and maybe more of the responsibility, oh, geez, pretty close to 100, I guess, of the responsibilities that the planning firm had on a day-to-day basis, for sure. That's pretty much gone, but not forgotten. They've done good work and left me with a good legacy, a lot of good documentation. But we will, and we'll need to utilize consultants for certain projects. Right now, as it stands, we have an existing contract with Giffords, and if there's outstanding work that needs to be done associated with, you know, in-depth, very complex, let's say a PUD or some specific kind of zoning or development process, or frankly, in the case of a project where they have an awful lot of experience still, and that experience is deemed to be a necessary part of how we can do our best work, we would have to utilize them to some extent, but I think that would all be pretty limited. But where we'll utilize them would be for contracts for specific projects, let's say zoning ordinance rewrites. They're currently working on a sign ordinance with the Planning Commission. We just talked through master plan proposal at the Planning Commission, and I believe there was another item we had them working on right now. Now, there's a couple of things. David, you might know of a couple of things too that we're still hanging out there.
Yeah, I think you named the two big ones.
Yeah, those are the big ones for sure. There's a couple of other smaller things that they would need to wrap up no matter what. And so I'll be able to work hard at making sure that those get wrapped up. One thing that I can assure you of is that I'll be able to ride herd on that contract on a regular basis, and, you know, identify and determine what kind of work we need to have done. I don't think that'll be very much compared to what we've used them for in the past, but you know, they'll always be available for us to refer to, at least for as long as we have any kind of a contract with them.
Mark, could you talk just a little bit about how planning and building go together and how that makes sense? I know it does, and, you know, Dennis and I, but I just wanted for the board's
Sure. I'm going to throw another piece into that mix, and that's code enforcement.
Right, yes.
A lot of people kind of combine building and code enforcement, but with what we've got, part of what we do for code enforcement is outside of the building realm, and it's more in the area of land use, you know, signs and things along the rights of way, and you know, just property that may be being neglected or whatever the case is. Some of them aren't really building issues, but from a planning and building relationship standpoint, I won't assume that anybody knows this, so I'll just speak in kind of sixth grade language. You know, you've got the planning process, which typically involves a developer coming in and saying, "Hi, I'm Joe Developer. I'm interested in doing something here in town. I've got some interest in this property. I'd like to do this." We work together to figure out how that needs to happen, if it can happen, first of all, and then how it needs to happen if there's a process for it, a special land use, a PUD, whatever the case might be. And then we go bring that item to the Planning Commission. We make sure that everybody gets involved and they have their input from the development review standpoint. You got all the various departments, the county agencies and other state agencies on some occasions as well. And then all of that gets brought into the project, identifies certain conditions and things they need to do in order to develop that project. And then a big part of the development of that project gets moved on to the Planning Commission and sometimes to the board if it's special land use or whatever. I think sometimes some of that gets here. PUDs and stuff anyway comes to the board. But then things get moved on to the building department after it's all approved at the planning level. And they also get moved on to the Public Works Department. So you've got infrastructure projects, you've got construction that needs to occur. So you've got a whole series of construction drawings that now come in and get submitted for utilities, infrastructure, whether it's roads, lights, whatever the case might be, and also the structural components of the building, the structure itself. So that goes in, it gets a plan review. They do their review, they identify whether or not those plans are suitable for developing, building, if you will. So they begin that building process. That's where a lot of times things start to get separated, and I would suggest that might have happened here on occasion. I can't say for sure, but I think that's a good guess. And what I mean by that is that you lose the ability to have somebody continue to shepherd that project along, somebody for that developer to get back to and say, hey, remember when we did this, you know how that went with the Planning Commission, you know, and there's little issues here and there that come up. And when you lose that continuity from that planning process and you're just moving it over to building, and now those guys are left just to deal with the building department, and I don't mean that in any kind of negative way, it's just that there's nobody shepherding that project any longer. And so one thing that combining the departments, if you will, or having them work under one umbrella is that, and now you can maintain the integrity of that original planning process along with the building and development process. And then of course you go through that process, you get it all built, or during that process of getting it built, you got a planner who's going out to take a look and make sure that they're meeting setbacks and that they got the right amount of trees and that the color's right and the material's right and all that stuff, because sometimes those things get away from you.
Right.
And then, of course, the engineering department's involved in all that same stuff. Or I shouldn't say engineering here, but Public Works, and you've got an engineering firm that comes along and does some of the site inspections for certain utilities. DPW does inspections for other utilities, infrastructure, but of course you've got the whole myriad of the trades from the building department coming in to do all their inspections, building, plumbing, mechanical, electrical, all of that. And once all that gets done, then 2 years go by, 3 years go by, 5 years go by, or whatever the case is, and lo and behold, they stuck a banner out there. They got a banner, their trash enclosure's falling apart, they're not taking care of this or that, the grass is over, then you got a code enforcement issue. So now you've kind of got, you know, that whole, I call it kind of the cycle of life, if you will, of a development project where you got the initial planning, the construction of it, the occupation of the building, and then the use of the building, and occasionally things happen where you need some improvements, or they come back and they want to add on. So that's sort of the relationship of all that. From my perspective, I think that's worked well. And when you bring those pieces together and you have that common element, it matters. And one of the things, if you don't mind my taking just an extra second, is saying that, you know, we'll have communication between all of us at the same time now. You know, we won't have, you know, the building department inspectors, you know, having their community, and they do a wonderful job. You won't have, you know, planners just talking to us. We'll have, you know, planning folks and public works folks, and we'll have building folks, and we'll have engineering and all that kind of coming together. And when projects involve, you know, a public project or some other, you know, economic development or financial incentives, then Treasury Department gets involved as well. So, you know, and of course, depending on the size of the project and whatever, you know, the administrator or superintendent gets involved as well. So, you know, I think that's a big part of what I'll be able to bring is that communication and continuity of, you know, these things.
Mr. Thomas?
Director Lloyd,
hey, that sounds good. Thank you. And nobody's said that before.
As the new director, the ordinance, the building department, and the planning is all under your letterhead, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Your official title is now?
Planning and Building Director.
Okay. When you were talking about the sign ordinance, I know that the planning was working on a new ordinance right now. Yeah, are you going to take the lead from Giffel from them and take that over yourself, or has there already been legwork on that?
Well, that's pretty close to being wrapped up. I mean,
is it?
we'd go backwards right now if I was to take that on,
Okay.
you know, and so, you know, that, and same with, well, the master plan hasn't been started, but that's a monstrous project, and some of the, I will be able to help coordinate and manage a lot of that in ways that, you know, the township hasn't necessarily had historically, that will prove to be tremendously beneficial from an end product standpoint and a community involvement standpoint and a communication perspective. You know, you'll see the amount of information and communications that we'll be putting forward. And, you know, I'll be leading that charge by all means in managing that project.
Very exciting to have you aboard.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Mr. Guzak and then Mr. Massey.
Yeah, I just wanted to welcome you to Grand Blanc Township, and we're glad you're here, and we've been waiting a long time, and I know we've got a good candidate here, so we're just glad you're here, and welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Massey?
Yes, Mr. Mark, I have a question. As you were talking, since I am embedded in some of the stuff that I learned in the classes from MTA.
Yeah.
Okay, so I thought of a question while you were talking.
Okay.
If one of the board members came to you and specifically asked you for a report, what would be your response?
A report that was already prepared or to prepare one?
Whatever.
Well, that matters. If somebody's asking for a report that's been prepared for 4 years, I'd go find it in the file and hand it to them. But if somebody wanted me to prepare a report based on something of their specific interest, I'd say, hey, Dennis. Or I'd ask that member to walk with me over to Dennis's office and say, you know, look, Mr. Massey has a great idea about something here. He'd like me to do this report. Are you good to go? It'd take me 2 hours to do it, or 2 minutes to do it, or 2 days, whatever the case is. But I'd communicate with the superintendent. Go ahead.
I would get a little nasty with you. I don't want to talk to the superintendent.
You would say that? Okay.
I said that to you.
Yeah.
I thought you and I were friends.
Yeah, right. We are.
How would you respond to that?
With that, I want to continue that friendship. And I'd also like to continue my employment. And hopefully you would do that, and I'd be able to go talk to Dennis, and I'd bring you a report back, and however long it was till you wanted me to give it to you. But we'd share it with the rest of this body as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Supervisor Bennett?
Yes.
A question, Director Lloyd.
Still sounds good.
Used to it now. So in terms of the master plan, is that, would this board be looking to you as the person to lead that, as Giffords has kind of been kicked it off? Are you the main focal point for that, the owner of it?
I would be. I think what I would say about that is that under previous circumstances, that main focal point, although it would be a heck of a burden to put on him, would be on Dennis's shoulders, but it would be mine.
Okay, I don't mind to take it away from Mr. Lehman
No,
if he was.
no, he appreciates it.
Okay. Okay, so we'll be funneling our request back and forth through you on
All of that, you bet.
Thank you.
Yes.
And that'll be, Mr. Lloyd, or Director Lloyd, that will be something that I believe you're going to involve the board quite a bit in too, as far as having input in that master plan, from what I've heard.
Well, I think I'm going to play with semantics on that a little bit. I would like to think that the board will be involving themselves in it.
Right.
We're going to try to make
Right.
it so exciting that you're going to want to be involved in it. And
Right.
you're going to realize how important it is that you're going to have to be involved in it. So
Right.
I
Okay.
got my fingers crossed, and I'm hopeful that we can convey that to you in a way that gets you all very involved, and you're proud and happy of the results of that.
Okay. Mr. Lemata?
As we move forward through the master plan, and you guys all know that I'm a huge proponent of the master plan, it's our guidebook. It's what, as elected officials, it's your opportunity to shape through citizen input where we're heading in the next 10, 20, 30 years, and we're going to make sure that we fill those in. It's looking at everything from recreation to land use planning to all this stuff. One of the ways to be the most successful and have the best master plan, and Mark will tell you this, that there's a lot of municipalities who would call Giffords Webster and say, yeah, make us a master plan, and give us that document, because the Planning Enabling Act requires us to have a master plan. We want to make sure we have it, and it's updated every 5 years. But there's other communities who try to figure out unique ways to get more citizen input in, and I think one of the exciting things for me to have Mark here is I love the concept of master planning. I love the idea of making it a living, breathing document and really carrying it around and knowing what's in it. And that's what I wanted. Mark and I have had these conversations quite a bit through the interview process, and then since he started in the last week, about unique ways that we're going to look to try to get more involvement. We've got to figure out a way to make it more. Maybe we, instead of having all the meetings here, we have them throughout the community. We try different areas, maybe in somebody else's neighborhood. We've got to come up with unique ways, and so I would like the board to be thinking about that as well. If there's civic organizations that you're a member of, or you're in your neighborhood, there's a good meeting place. It's a clubhouse of your HOA or whatever it is. Can we schedule a meeting there and then really try to pull that neighborhood? Because it's really awesome if we can get representatives from all the distinct neighborhoods and all the quadrants of the township to participate in this process. And so we've got a lot of work ahead of us through 2018, but really exciting work. And again, this is where Mark, I think, can really provide us expertise and help us as a community.
Okay, anything else for Director Lloyd? Okay.
Just one
Yeah,
comment
Mr. Kent.
through you to Director Lloyd. We have a Board of Zoning Appeals on a lot split coming up on next Tuesday.
Yes, you do. I wrote that report for you.
So that's how that'll be. We'll be receiving the reports from you rather than Gifford Webster.
Yeah, on most everything. I
Okay.
mean, like I was saying, there will be certain PUDs and certain very complex items that, we may defer to or need to rely upon a Giffords Webster firm or somebody to help us with that. But I can assure you that, I reached out to Mr. Laddie on this particular thing. And so I'm good at and know how to check in, make sure that, the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and to ensure, particularly with something at the ZBA, that the legal issues are well taken care
Is
of.
it your plan to attend those meetings?
Yes,
Okay,
sure.
very good.
We talked about that a little bit. I'll definitely be there at the next meeting, and, we'll see how things evolve and what you might need from me, how you've received the report that I wrote, and what you might want to change or things you want highlighted, brought out, whatever the case is. My job's to make sure that, when you read my reports, you can understand them, and it makes the process simple and definitive.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you very much.
All right.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Good luck.
Yep, I will.
Okay. Just follow all the cars tomorrow on Grand Blanc Road. The next item on the agenda is operational issues. The board will consider a resolution to authorize the request of Treasurer Guzak to waive the late penalty charge for the winter tax bill as allowed under MCL 211.443. This allows payment of taxes without penalty till February 28, 2018.
So moved?
Support.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
So I believe that goes along with this, there's a resolution. Is that correct? And we have this is a motion or resolution, whatever. But in the verbiage that goes along with this, it doesn't refer to a February 28th as a new deadline for this. It just says no late penalty charge on taxes paid after February 14th. So I'm wondering if we should include something like that in there.
Well, you're right about that, and the reason it reads like that is because that's exactly what the statute says, and it says, it identifies the point in time when they're returned delinquent under section 78A2. And the reason for that is that the statute recognizes that date as the date that the taxes leave our control and are submitted to the county. And I thought, what's the big mystery with the 28th? And I didn't know if it had to do with leap year or why they have that date, why they just don't say the 28th. And so I thought rather than take some chance and make some maybe leap year mistake, I just copied the language exactly from the statute. And so it refers to 78A2, which is, again, the date that the taxes leave our building and end up at the county. One of the other reasons I wrote it that way, and you can also see in the first paragraph, it says, unless the next regular business day falls on a Sunday, Saturday. It doesn't do that this year, but what I wanted you to be able to do is, if you want to keep this resolution in place for years to come, you can do that the way it's written. If you want to say the 28th, if you want to make it specific to 2018, then we can just say February 14th to February 28th and go with it.
So it just doesn't seem, it seems like to me, unless there's something in here that I don't completely understand, is that it's just kind of like wide open. You can pay it after the Feb 14th without any penalty.
Well,
months later.
When they're returned as delinquent under Section 78A2, that's the date that they leave our office and land in the county, and that's traditionally the last day of February. And again, I'm guessing, but I think that date changes whenever there's a leap year.
So you're saying that within the 78A2 is actually a specific date identified?
It's March 1.
Okay.
So I think I tried to know, that occurred to me too. I mean, I said, this thing's written a little weird, but it is just because that's the way the statute's written. Now, again, if you want to make it just limited to 18, you can. If you want to take this one and go with it with that caveat. The bottom line is, and one of the things we were trying not to do is make this more complicated than it had to be, because people, I think, are traditionally used to in the township having until the end of February to pay their taxes without penalty. And we didn't want to rock the boat too much.
So we're going to vote on this tonight, I think. And how is this communicated, Mr. Guzak, to our residents? Do we send something out telling them this, or it's just when people come in and pay their taxes late, or?
Don't change a thing.
Right.
Yeah, normally people come in and say, did the board approve it or whatever, because they're used to it being approved.
But we don't mail out anything.
We don't mail anything out. When people come in, if they say, what's the deadline? We say, well, the board just passed it. It does go to the end of the month, and most of them are expecting that.
So they probably won't even see this language here. This is more of an internal document.
So, Mr. Supervisor, does this mean that we are relinquishing our ability to kind of look at this every year?
Not necessarily. You can leave this in place if you want. You can also decide to pass a resolution to impose that 3% fee. And my discussions with Mr. Guzak and his deputy is that I can't recall having done that. I know that every year Mr. Guzak comes to us and says, just like for the last decade plus, we've always given the people till the 28th. So if you decide you want to change the process and you do want to implement a late fee, we'd have to have some discussion on it. We'd have to pass a resolution implementing that. And then Mr. Guzak would have to be ready for an avalanche of trouble if we try to impose that fee. But we can do that. I don't think you can do it this year. It's that ship has sailed. But
yeah, the only comment I'd like to make, I would hope that this just weighs it for 1 year. Next year, I want to bring it back and do the resolution again.
You can if you want. You can bring this back. You can revoke this. You can keep this in place for a decade if you want. You can do whatever you want the way this is written. If you want to put 2018 at the top of it, you can.
So, Mr. Leddy, are you saying that by adopting this resolution, we basically put the end of the month on autopilot and would have to do something specific to change that?
Yes.
Unless we put 2018 on.
Unless we put, yes, as written.
You are correct.
So next year, we're going to have the same resolution.
You don't need to.
If
you can leave it in place. If you want to do something different, then you'll need to
So if
resurrect
we
it.
adopt this resolution, won't have to look at this next year or the year after the year. Right.
You don't want to, you don't have to look at it.
So you don't have to bring it back up.
But just for clarification, I can still have the tax due date, the 14th printed, and then this resolution will allow it to be extended. And the reason I'm saying that is, when you have a 14 deadline, it gets people in, and then, of course, if somebody forgets by 1 or 2 days, you're not sitting there arguing with them for 1 or 2 days. We'd say, okay, it's been approved by the board that we can extend it from the 14th to the 28th. You know, if this is continuous, then I can still leave it to 14th.
Yes.
And this will allow it to automatically go to the 28th.
Yes.
And that's what we prefer, because that's what's worked well in the past. Another treasurer set that up, and it has worked well in the past, because people come in and say, well, I was only 1 day late. well, no, we've already extended it 14 days. We're not gonna extend any more, and now it's out of our hands. It's at the county, and you're done. We've got no control.
Mr. Kent?
I have some properties in some other counties. In fact, I was a neighbor to Mr. Limita. I still have it. And they must have done similar to this in Moran Township, Mr. Laddie, because they printed actually on the tax bill that's due February 28th.
Yeah, that caused some debate and some discussion, and because we're not actually, technically the date is the 14th.
Right.
Yeah, but the date, but they put that in, I gotta tell you, it's either in the letter that's accompanying the tax bill or it's on the bill. I'll have to relook at that, but I know that my wife writes the checks for this stuff, but she'll say, yeah, it's the 28th, and why don't Grambling do that, kind of a thing. And so I didn't know if I'll have to revisit that, but it's one or the other, either an accompanying letter or the bill.
Well, the effect, and some of them do it. If you look, I think maybe Fenton does that too. And we have done that, I think, in the past as well. But the more correct way to do it, and I don't, since Earl's been here, I think he's been doing it with the 14th or 28th. The more correct way to do it is taxes are due on the 14th, and if we chose, and if other municipalities choose to do, they can hit you with a 3% penalty if you come in on the 15th. And then if you haven't paid it by March 1st, the county will hit you with a 4% penalty plus interest.
Right.
And so it has the effect, basically, of saying you can come in and pay without penalty till the 28th, but it doesn't change the due date. And that's the technical way to do it, is to have the 14th.
Right, that's
and
what I
then
prefer.
waive any penalty and then
Yeah.
go.
I see.
It means the same thing,
Yeah.
but this is a little more correct than.
Interesting.
Ms. Lane?
David is giving the same opinion that we can't change it from the 14th that his dad gave back in the 70s and 80s when we started making this
It's
motion.
the only thing we've agreed on.
But now we never have to visit this.
If you don't want
So-
to, you don't have to visit it
I
again.
guess we're looking for a motion as to whether we want to
We
add the
we have a
2018.
motion.
We have a motion and support.
It's up for vote.
We're just calling
Okay.
for the resolution.
All right, so Ms. Lane, you want to call,
Okay.
do roll call vote?
Mr. Kent,
Yes.
Mr. Mansour,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Mr. Bozak.
Yes.
Mr. Massey.
Yes.
Myself, yes.
Yes.
Mr. Supervisor. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The board will consider a motion to approve Rowe Engineering's design proposal for $70,000 for improvements to the township's water distribution system, and authorize the township superintendent to execute all related contracts and agreements. And we discussed this pretty thoroughly on Tuesday and what it was regarding.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve Rowe Engineering's design proposal for $70,000 improvements to township water distribution system, authorize superintendent to execute all related contracts and agreements.
Support.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item C, board will consider a resolution to adopt the 2018 federal poverty guidelines for residential property tax poverty exemptions for the 2018 property assessments. This is a new annual requirement from the State Tax Commission. And I think Mr. Limita sent out some information to our board after Tuesday's meeting,
Yes.
explaining the guidelines and the checklist that's required. I don't know if there's any further questions anybody had on that.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll
So
second.
moved.
Well, it's a resolution, so Ms. Lane would,
Yes, Mr. Massey,
Yes.
Mr. Mansour,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas, Mr. Kent,
Yes.
Mr. Bozak,
Yes.
myself, yes, Mr. Supervisor.
yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Item D, the board will consider a resolution to waive interest and penalties associated with the unfiled property transfer affidavits. And we discussed this on Tuesday as well.
Yes.
Would you like to make a motion, Mr. Massey?
Yes. The board will consider resolution to waive interest and penalties associated
Okay,
with unfiled property transfer affidavits.
Support.
okay, is motion support, Ms. Lane?
All right, Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Guzak,
Yes.
Mr. Massey,
Yes.
Mr. Kent,
Yes.
Mr. Mansour.
Yes.
Myself, yes, Mr. Supervisor.
Yes.
Thank you.
And now we'll move to,
Excuse me,
what we're
Mr.
hearing-
Supervisor
Yes.
Bennett.
Sir,
On the operational issues,
did I miss something?
nope, I'm sorry, it was a change from the previous one. It was shown as a resolution, not a motion. I'm sorry, we're all set.
that's all right.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item is what we're hearing from the community. We heard a little bit from the community this evening, the public comment with regard to one of our street projects. So we will be talking to Mr. Sears, and I'm sure he's been in conversation with the road commission already, but anything else anybody's hearing in the community?
I guess this may be correct at this time. Haven't seen Mr. Ed in a while.
Yeah. He will be here. He's been in communication, but
Okay.
he will, I believe, he's continuing to stay in touch, and
Okay.
we will see him probably in future meetings.
Yeah, let me see him soon.
Yeah. So I'll let him know when he calls me next that we
Yes.
have people asking his whereabouts.
Supervisor Bennett?
Yes.
Two points. First, in terms of hearing from the community, so I received a follow-on email from Clerk Lane about a resident who has a question about lighting in the Woodfield community. So I'm trying to chase that one down a little bit. Apparently, this particular resident, Woodfield has a number of homeowner associations in it. And this particular resident lives in a very new road, and I think there's either 2 or 3 homes on it that would constitute, if it was actually its own homeowner association, that homeowner association. So I'm digging a little bit more into that, trying to find out, you know,
Okay.
how these all go together. But anyway, so that's what I've been working on.
Well, you might, I don't know, did you receive the correspondence, or?
I did.
You might forward that to, would it be Mr. Sears or to you, Dennis? And because we can look at a couple different ways. One of the things that happens, and I've learned this, is that the lighting districts are actually set up by our assessing office.
Oh.
And we can see if there's already a lighting district set up for that neighborhood.
Well, I have the name of a person, and I have to kind of chase this down, a person by the name of Heather Jakeway, who seems to have some responsibility for certain homeowner associations. So I have some discussion with her about it and kind of figure out how she kind of ties into this, because I don't frankly understand that very well.
She's in a different neighborhood than I know.
I know, but apparently she's somehow connected with a number of homeowner associations.
She works in property management, I think.
Oh, okay.
For
All right.
Ah, okay.
Pollock
Okay.
Associates.
Miss Lane?
For the board's information, normally if a street light is out in most of the township, we call Consumer Energy and they take care of it. Woodfield's PUD, when Brian Mansour developed it, he had those very elaborate, beautiful light fixtures. Consumer Energy has nothing to do with the repair. Homeowners Association there is mandated to maintain with a special electrician and with the provider of the light fixtures. If they break, Consumer Energy doesn't have anything at
Okay.
all to do with that. All that Consumer Energy does with Woodfield is charge for the electricity. So
Okay.
that's why I had to reach out to somebody that lived near the area, because we don't have a list
Contract.
of common homeowners association contacts, and there are multiple within that whole
Right.
group of people there.
And we've
So-
been trying to identify too online to people that actually, if they have a light out in their neighborhood, there's a website actually that Consumers is very good.
Right.
You fill out the form, and you can even look on there to update the status to see where they're at and doing it.
Yeah, actually, I've called just their hotline. You call your hotline and you tell them the address of where the light's out, because I've got one in front of my house.
Right.
And they take care of it. You don't even have to fill out a form. You just do it over the phone.
Right. But you can do it on your phone.
I did it twice at Warwick Hills, twice, and actually I just called Clerk Lane, contacted her, and it was fixed in 3 days.
We gotta show you the website.
So one more item in the area of future agenda items. So and actually in terms of continuous improvement, we've kind of gotten through the approval of the 2018 budget, and I noticed that there were, at the end of the year, the range of spending in each of the line items ranged from 0% to 1,800%. And so I'm just wondering if there's something that we can learn, year over year to try and kind of improve these things, so we can kind of dial in more closely what the expenses are in some of these areas. So I'd like to ask if we could kind of look at some of those outliers, the highs and the lows, and see if there's a way we can be a little more precise about the budgeting.
Okay.
Well, it's reported line by line.
Right.
So in areas where it's way up or down, you know, what happened?
So let's go through our board reports if we could.
I was just
Sounds
going
good.
to make a comment to Mr. Mansour. I know, Mr. Mansour, that the Finance Department will be making journal entries retroactive to 2017 and 2018 through February. So this is, again, just for your own information and the board's information from past practice.
So there'll be adjustments yet to be made.
Yes, there are adjustments made through February of each year.
Mr. Limita?
And just to that point, we'll finally have that budget year-to-date sometime at the end of February or March, when we've gotten everything through and it's been, the general ledger's been allocated appropriately. But to your point about that, because when we do budget amendments, if somebody had an unusual expense come in and there was money left in a line item, because we don't make budget amendments for every line item, unless you guys want to meet a lot more often than we do. We typically, as long as it's within their cost center, we'll say, okay, we can make that purchase, or we can have this, but it's going to come out of these three accounts. There's still money left in their cost center in their department. So that's where part of that comes from. In that we tweak it every year when we go through the budget process. But your point's well taken, and I think when we go through the budget process, it's key as we go, when you get your budget handed out to you on September 1st, you guys start to go through those, is to look at some of those, because that's where I approach it when I sit down with department heads, is I go through from the prior years, year to date, and for budget versus actual, and we go down there and we look, and it's line item by line item by line item. Now, I don't expect you to approve it that way, but it does help us as well when in September you say, well, hey, in the last 3 years, there's been radical departure from what we had budgeted from, you know, whatever it is. It could be supplies. Why is it? Why don't we try to pin that down a little bit better? So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Moving to our board reports. Mr. Mansour, anything on
So,
planning?
thank you. Planning Commission, first off, I want to make sure that the board knows that the Planning Commission understands and will be ready for the March 27th meeting, joint meeting with the board here. So we're getting ready for that. Second, regarding the master plan, the Planning Commission is being asked now to provide input on the scope of the work requested. And so what I've done, what I will do is include the strategic initiatives that the board approved earlier I guess it was in like March or April of the year, and where those have tie-ins to the master plan in terms of aesthetics, attractiveness of retail and restaurants, those kind of things. We'll make sure that that's overlaid into the plan. And also, there's been a lot of discussion around lighting, and so that's going to be another area of focus on the master plan. Let me see. Just to kind of wrap up that, I'd like to know if the board has anything else that they would like to communicate or talk or get in front of the Planning Commission. And then I have one more topic related to the Metro Alliance.
I think I'm glad that we have Mark on board to bring, you know, concerns to the Planning Commission with you, and I think it's going to be a team approach. So I appreciate all of your work on that too, Mr. Mansour.
Okay, so then I just wanted to make a quick point. There's going to be amendment number 10 that's going in front of. There's going to be a public hearing on January the 17th that talks about. I guess it's a transportation improvement program, Amendment 10, and some of the things that are on there are bridge replacements in Carpenter Road, Linden Road, and Lippincott. So nothing of any significance in the township. Thank you.
Mr. Thomas?
The Parks and Rec had a very, very, very quick meeting on December, the last week of December. Our next meeting's next Thursday, but pleased to announce that we have a new commissioner, and it happens to be our own Lieutenant Matt Simpson from our township. The school board appointed Matt to be a commissioner. And it's going to give us a lot of new ideas and some new blood and a really welcome face. And other than that, we meet next Thursday. But congratulations to your lieutenant, Chief.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Massey, anything on fire?
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay.
Supervisor Bennett, I just have a
Yes.
question. Maybe someone knows, maybe a trustee knows or someone. What was this fire incident 111 as a building fire on December 27th? I mean, December 22nd. It seemed to be a relatively significant thing in the,
That was during our meeting, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that was over in Williamsburg Farms.
It was.
It was a home on Left Bridge.
Okay.
There was a home that the garage caught on fire, but the fire department did contain it.
Okay.
And
thought
so
it
from
was
the outside.
It wasn't a total loss? I thought it
Well,
was a
I've
total
driven
loss.
by it. I can see that the garage is kind of boarded up, but the house part looks fairly strong, but I haven't been able to get in it. I don't
Yeah.
know if they're.
I believe it's a total loss.
Is it?
So it was a residential
It was a
fire.
family.
Residential fire in Williamsburg Farms.
Family
Okay,
with,
thank you.
with children, actually. It was pretty devastating. We actually had a resident that was a neighbor to the home speak at our meeting, and it was a pretty serious situation.
Right,
So-
and he applauded our fire department.
Right,
for
and our
taking
police.
Very highly for taking care of the situation with not only the house, but with the children and with everybody involved.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Kent?
Okay, Board of Zoning Appeals will meet next Tuesday, the 16th. As I indicated, it's a significant size lot split. And on the 23rd, the Police Committee is going to meet at 5:30.
Next on, Mr. Guzak, anything?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Ms. Lane?
I sent out, because I am proud to announce we're 185 years old. Mr. Kent indicated that, and made David laugh, that nobody responded because David says don't respond. So he was glad you're listening, and I was just, it was the thoughtful thing that I'm proud to say we're the oldest community. And what has happened in the past when we were 150 and 175, because we're the oldest, nobody's done anything in Genesee County because they've never gotten there. We're there first. And so I'm bringing it to light because I thought it might be nice to put on a newsletter when it goes out or some of the other things we do this year. I know when I tell Jet Kilmer we'll get a little award from the chamber for being 185 because they do it in 5-year increments. And this will be the first time in more than 5 years. But
We get an award, I think we should do it.
We aren't getting any award, but.
Apply.
So your question was with regard to putting that on
right,
our
I
letterhead?
mean, when somebody comes up with an idea like that,
I think it's
you-
great.
I don't have any problem
I've sent
putting it on
out,
there.
so I'm just saying,
I want to
you
dress
know.
it up a little bit, though. I'd like Mr. Lima to, if we're going to do that, I would ask that we have somebody professionally design something that would have the 185 years on it.
And,
It was pretty bland.
yeah, and we want to use that for the cover of the master plan as well. And kind of tie that in everywhere if we get something that we think is,
Multicolors will cost more
of course.
for printing.
And I'd like to look at our logo, too. One of the things that, our sign is looking pretty ratty out there, but I'd like to, I know that Ms. Lane will tell you that a lot of work was put into the logo in the past, but
right.
one of
It
the
was a
challenges,
contest.
one of the challenges that I find with our logo is that if you print it on anything, seeing it at a distance,
Multicolored.
you can't tell what it is. You look at a logo that has some simple letters and you can see it from here to the wall. You can embroider it on things, you can paint it on things. But when you look at our logo with the multicolors, if you're doing anything in black and white, you can't tell what it is. It looks like maybe a palm tree and something on the beach. But I'd like to toy with that a little bit and bring some things to the board to consider, but maybe we can incorporate our current logo somehow, but.
Yeah, put it over top of the
Yeah, put it,
banner.
right, use it somewhere. Yes,
Supervisor Bennett, I'd like to thank Kathy for bringing the 185
Yeah.
to our attention. I think that was a great idea, Clerk Lane, and but I would like to encompass something that we are the oldest municipality in the county. That's pretty good. But do we need to make it consent?
no, we can just ask Mr. Lima to come up with something on that, I believe. Right? I mean, we don't have to have a vote to start using 185 years, do we?
No, you guys can do whatever you want. But I'd be happy to look into it for you. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
We can take a look at having
Some designs.
little graphic artist throw something together, and
Can
we'll
you
send it out
get
to
your
the board.
stationery?
But,
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
the date is when? The 100?
August 1st, 1833, before the state of Michigan, when this was still the Michigan Territory.
That's what I thought.
And Grand Blanc Township was bigger than it was
Yes.
not 36 square miles. It was quite a bit of the county at that point.
Mr. Kent?
I have to make a correction to my, the meeting for the police, it's 5 o'clock, not 5.
Okay. As far as,
The first
Been-
minutes, for everybody's information, I framed, and it's been over there in a frame
I've seen
since
them.
2008,
Very good.
when I came here, just because I'm proud of it.
Yeah. One of the things that you've probably seen in the news, I don't know if I emailed everybody, was with regard to the MTA facility on the corner of Maple and Dort, which I was curious to see that it was in the paper before it actually came to our planning commission, but I think it will be coming, but that's a pretty big development. And maybe we can even incorporate into that a welcome to Grand Blanc sign somehow in that development on that corner.
Not
So-
not a sign,
Real Grand
a
Blanc.
brick wall. We're gonna
Right,
be
well,
consistent and
a
small.
monument sign of some sort. The roundabout at the corner that we kiddingly said should have a
The Elmansor.
the Almansor corner. Actually sent some possible design. I've met with Fred Pavandi, the head engineer for the road commission, and while that's been let out for bids, he said that, changes can be made during the construction period. And there is a roundabout in East Lansing at the corner of Bircham and one of the lake roads. It's in East Lansing now. But they actually have a website for this roundabout, and it has a rain garden in the center of it. But I sent him some photos of that, and he said that they would see it's very low maintenance. We would have to have somebody agree to maintain what is there, but it might look a lot better than having asphalt or concrete there, or gravel. So that, we've had discussion on that. Ms.
Okay.
Lane?
There are 2 roundabouts in Rochester on Tinkin Road that are also green and low maintenance, so I'll send those pictures
Okay.
as well. And thank you for finally
Okay.
listening.
No, hey, I've been in favor of it.
I'm still with the Elmansor statue.
Yeah. Finally listening to who?
Inflatable?
Yeah.
Keep going. Okay, so,
So the developer, we've been fielding calls, we posted on, I don't know if any of you are using the Nextdoor, but it seems to get a lot of interaction with our residents. We posted on there about the lighting, that if you have a street light out, generates interest from neighborhoods that don't have lighting to those that want more lighting. So it's been a very good tool for conversing with our neighborhoods. Same with all our social media. But that's pretty much all I have for right now. The water, KWA, I received the agenda for the upcoming meeting, and they did note that that our board nominated me to serve on that. They will be meeting this next month and make their decisions on who they'll be appointing to that KWA board. And the water was turned on here. It was actually turned on the day after our last meeting, but
Thanks for pointing out a mistake, appreciate that.
it's not
Did
your
you
mistake.
get
They probably planned the day earlier and they moved it back, who knows?
Did you get appointed to the executive board for the KWA?
That's coming up next month, that they decide who's going to get appointed to that. So I'm trusting you'll put in a good word for me.
Do any of us need to seriously write letters to Jeff Wright?
I don't know that it's necessary, but I appreciate the
Does it
thought.
work? Does it help?
I think from the looks of it, there's no other nominees other than.
Okay, I'll write a letter.
So that should limit my,
Right.
my damage, so.
I did write a letter
Yes.
informing them of our appointment
I
and
saw that
asked him
letter.
to consider Mr.
Right.
Bennett for the executive board because of, you know,
Right.
Grand Blanc's leadership in the community, and so I said it on behalf of the board, so.
I will write, I'm sorry, but I'd like to write a letter and then I'll disperse it to everybody that, whoever wants to sign it, and I'll put it from the trustees.
Just for the record,
Yes.
Clerk Lane, I spoke to Mr. Jeff Wright before you did, before anyone else did.
I talked to Jeff 2 hours ago, so
I spoke to him when
Okay.
this first came up.
Mr. on the prison.
That
All right.
was,
Any
on
other
that
further?
date.
Thank you very much, Mr. Massey, I appreciate it. Mr. Limita, Mr. Laddie?
Actually, I do have one item, and as long as we're talking about beautification and statues and things.
Yes.
The Pepperwood billboard sign, which is adjacent to the Pepperwood development, condo development, is going to be removed. Finally, it's been a long time coming, and we managed to do that with a stipulation in Judge Ferris' court, and the bad news is they have until the end of June to remove it. If they don't remove it, then we can go in and remove it ourselves, and they'll be responsible for the cost. And just one ancillary item, when this looked like it wasn't going to be resolved, I sent an email to Giffords Webster and Mark Lloyd over the holiday, asking basically for someone to come in and testify as an expert regarding our sign ordinance. And I'll say that Director Lloyd stepped right up, said, "I'll be there. I got whatever you need," and was ready to do that. So I was very appreciative of that. So I'm glad to report that that is coming down. I apologize for the amount of time it may remain, but the good news is that there's been a billboard there since approximately 1950 or so. And our non-conforming sign portion of our sign ordinance allows signs to continue, and I was anticipating a lot of arguments that were economically motivated and that had constitutional overtones to it. But to their credit, and this was after a lot of cajoling and effort, I think the developers realized that this was something that we were eventually going to prevail on, and we didn't have to go through an expensive trial or a timely trial. So that's the good news and bad news. I'm glad it's going to be gone. It'll be a good day when it finally comes down.
Thank you very much. That's great work. Mr. Limita?
So I have a couple things for you. We had a snowplow that we'd been having some issues with on one of the trucks. It's one of the big 10-footers, and it couldn't be repaired again, so we had to put an order in today. I authorized that. I did run it through Supervisor Bennett because it did exceed my spending authority of $17,503. So you'll get the narrative and the information at your next meeting, but I did authorize them to go ahead and get the order done. It was ordered through my deal, so we know that we're guaranteed the lowest price.
Plus, it takes some time to get it. And
Correct.
If we get the 10 inches of
That's
snow.
just the plow, right? Not the truck? Okay,
Correct.
all right.
The other thing is that I've been asked to represent government for Genesee County for the I-69 Thumb region in a talent forum. We've had a conference call on January 3rd, and the next thing we'll do is out at Lapeer Country Club on January 24th. I was asked by the Flint Genesee Chamber to participate to represent all governments, and I think that the cool thing is they got a grant for $40,000, I think it is, and they're looking for ways to put together, and a lot of it's about retaining and attracting talent. It's about growing the job force. But I think a couple important things came out. One was that when you look at the percent of unemployed folks in Genesee County, we're showing like 5.3. That was as of October of 2017. But I think that's only part of the picture. They did a really good job of putting data together about commutes and how many people actually live outside and commute in, how many live and work in the county, and how many live in this county and commute out. So it's about retaining some of those people or right sizing. We've got, about the same amount of people who are driving in to come to work as we have living here and are driving out to go to work. So it's more about retaining and what we can do to attract from a labor force. I thought one of the most interesting statistics that came out of this was as part of that I-69 Thumb region, the percent that is in the labor force. It's only 56.6%. That would be the people that are eligible and working age. Population 15 plus out of our total population is 56.6%. And that's lower than all of our other comparable areas, as well as Michigan is 60.1%. Kind of tells you that either some people have given up on the idea of work, that they're not unemployed, they're just not looking for work any longer. It also could be a reflection that we're more affluent, and there's some people who just stay home and aren't working. But it's about focusing what we can do from an employer standpoint, how to help employers in our area attract and retain the talent that we have, as well as grow new jobs for our community. Instead of pitting our county versus county, is really how we do overall for all of us to move forward. As I talk about retaining, there's a couple of good things on the economic development front that I've been working really hard on. I wish I could tell you some names of people, but I can't. It may be announced very, very soon, but we worked really hard at retaining about 600 jobs here in Grand Blanc Township. It's really close to coming to fruition. I have a non-disclosure on announcing who it is, but we've worked hard to find properties, and thank you to the assessing, thank you to GIS to help me in that quest to work with a variety of developers who are all trying to come together, and it's been a process that's been taking about 2 months, but I think that it was between us or those jobs were going to Mexico, so we've worked really hard to make sure they stayed here, and I believe we are going to be able to make that announcement very, very soon, that 600 jobs were retained in this community, and it will result in new growth, initially a 230,000 square foot facility with room for expansion of an additional 170,000 square foot. So it's a really exciting opportunity for Grand Blanc Township. The other thing is that with the Tech Village, we have we've been waiting for the appraisal to be done on those 2 parcels that are located within Tech Village. Talked to Mr. Rexroth, the appraiser, back and forth this week many times. We thought we'd have it today. It should probably be released tomorrow. It will tell us what he's valuing that property at based on our new zoning that we put into place to accommodate Tech Park and Tech Village. The great news is I've also been getting a phone call twice a day from one developer, a Michigan developer, who's very interested in that project and is wondering how that appraisal's coming out. We also have another developer who has expressed interest. So we've got good things on the economic development front that could result in multi-millions of dollars in development here in the community.
Mr. Limina, I have a question about the appraisal. Why, or is the township paying for the appraisal?
Not at all. The 2 private property owners are paying 100% of the appraisal. They're just sharing the data with us so that we can help them in this whole process, public-private partnership, to help them market it and move it forward.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say I've been in a meeting in the last couple of weeks with Mr. Limita and Mr. Lloyd, and with the developer, and I got to say we've got some great synergy here in the township, and I think with our DPW director and really all our departments, I can just see some real synergy to make things happen, and people that come in maybe with some challenges, and between Mr. Lloyd and Mr. Limita, those challenges are turned into opportunities to show them what we can do. And I've seen some people walk in here maybe with some concerns and walk out saying, hey, they listened to me, and you guys are really making some changes there. So I think I know that we're going in the right direction, and I think the development community is going to see that over the next, if they haven't seen it already, we'll continue to see our favorable progress.
Supervisor Bennett and Mr. Lima, can we make sure that we capture what some of these things are, what they're asking for, and what we're accommodating? Because I think that's going to feed as well into the narrative, into the master plan, some of the things that we need to include there. So while you're busy having the discussions, they may have some pie-in-the-sky things that they want, but let's try and understand what those are, just to help us be more attractive.
Okay. Very good suggestion.
And I think right along with what Trustee Mansor just said is, I know, and Al, I think you are on that business attractiveness subcommittee. I've got a whole page of information that came out of a really good meeting with developers about some of the pitfalls or some of the issues that they might have bumped against putting a recent project together. We'll make sure we get those captured and get those to you to share with the subcommittee. And man, I think that they were willing to come in and sit down with us, and we had talked at that time. They told Scott that they would be willing to come in and meet with you guys again to walk through how we keep saying, how do we get better? How are we doing, and how do we get better?
Absolutely.
And you're talking millions of, tens of millions?
We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars of development.
Kind of like, sophomore? 50 million?
We're not talking Southmore.
56 million.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks for sharing that article.
I just wanted to see what, I mean, in the surrounding community, what's going on. Yeah, I'm not sure that we're in favor of that type of development, but anyways.
We have the benefit, though, because now, since they've got that in their area, we can use that as an adjoining land use. So now that doesn't have
It
to
is
fit.
300 feet,
So
right?
that doesn't have to appear in our master plan, in our
I
township.
definitely want to name the roundabout the El Mansour roundabout now.
Supervisor
Okay,
Bennett?
anything else?
I would make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed?
No.